And thank you for staying with us. Now, we are starting with a deep dive into Ghana's political scene with John Dramani Mahama, or rather, where John Dramani Mahama has been inaugurated as the president once again. Yes, he's been there before, and now he's back like he never left, as they say in the movies. Now, Mahama is a seasoned politician who has previously served both as vice president and president. Now, he's stepping into the role as at a crucial time in the country of Ghana. But his return raises important questions, not just for Ghana, but for Africa as a whole. The big question here is, does bringing back experienced leaders like John Dramani Mahama represent a step forward for stability and continuity, or is this still just another recycling process? Now, before we get into that, here is a package which I put together concerning the inauguration of the 14th president of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. The transition is now complete and history has been made. John Dramani Mahama has officially been sworn in as Ghana's 14th president. In a ceremony that was attended by several world leaders, the event had the Vice President, Jane Naana Opoku-Agyemang, proudly take her oath of office as the country's first female vice president. Then, amidst cheers and celebrations from the crowd at the Black Star Square, the new president took to the stage and swore his oath.
As your next leader, I shall strive to exercise sound judgment and be able to make the right calls at the right time. I will have the humility and presence of mind to take responsibility for any challenges and be willing to act firmly and timelessly to resolve the challenges that we face as a nation.
As for the inaugural speech, the president started by recognizing the guests present and then acknowledging his political opponent, Dr. Mahmudu Bawumia, and the outgoing president, Nana Akufo-Addo, who on the same day 8 years ago was sworn in while Mahama was stepping down. While outlining his vision for Ghana's future, the key points of the president's speech included gratitude and commitment to Ghanaians for their trust, pledging that their support would lead to meaningful change, economic recovery and stability. He emphasized plans to restore and stabilize the economy, aiming to create jobs and reduce poverty, business and investment environment. The president assured that Ghana is open for business, promising a more transparent and fair tax regime to stimulate growth. Governance and constitutional reforms. Mahama highlighted the need for governance reforms to enhance transparency and accountability.
The circumstances we find ourselves in are indeed dire, but even so, I'll be decisive and swift in my actions. We'll focus our initial efforts on 4 critical areas. The first is economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment. The second is the improvement of the business and investment environment to ensure that Ghana is once again open for business. The third is governance and constitutional reforms. And the final, but not the least, is accountability and the fight against corruption.
Furthermore, the president spoke on fighting against corruption. He reiterated his commitment to combating corruption, ensuring that public resources are used for the benefits of all citizens. National unity and inclusivity. Mahama called for unity among Ghanaians, urging citizens to work together to build a more prosperous and resilient country. Acknowledgement of predecessors' efforts. Mahama commended the previous administration for its contributions, particularly in economic growth and infrastructural development, and expressed his intent to build upon these achievements. Calls for national reset. He stressed the need for a national reset to restore faith in Ghana's institutions and leadership, encouraging citizens to enter into a covenant to build the Ghana they all desire. The special guest of honor and current ECOWAS chairman Bola Tinubu celebrated with the president, expressing his willingness to further improve relationships between Nigeria and Ghana.
Today, I am here not only as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but also as an African in resolute support of Ghana and our people.
President Mahama's speech in conclusion set a tone for hope and determination, focusing on economic revitalization, good governance, and national unity as the pillars of Ghana's future development. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
What you just saw was the beautiful report put together by Bernard Akede. Now, with over 60 African leaders, Bernard is rejoicing. Why are you excited?
It was a beautiful report, you did say, and really, really a beautiful one, I must confess, because I mean, there was a lot of excitement about Ghana's president, and the interesting thing for me is the questions we were asking are things that we're going to discuss right now. Why so much excitement?
Exactly.
He's somebody who's been there before, been there, done that, like I say, bought a T-shirt.
Put a pause on it.
And now he's coming back.
Put a pause on it. Okay, so with over 60 African leaders in attendance and the entire continent watching, President John Dramani Mahama, who first got into power in 2009, I believe, as the vice president, and also served in 2012 as the president, has come back 2025 as the president of Ghana, taking over, of course, from Nana Akufo-Addo. And of course, we also have another record-breaking, the new vice president, who is the first female vice president of Ghana. But we're going to get into that very shortly. Now, the question is, and that's what Bennett said, why so much excitement for someone who was in power before and came back? Did he fulfill the promises when he was there? What are the things that Ghanaians are pegging their hopes on that is getting them so excited? And when I say excitement, I mean there was a lot of excitement, a lot of it. But anyways, we're now joined by our very own anchor and seasoned political analyst, Dapo Adigboye.
As always, it's a pleasure being here.
It's a pleasure.
Let me start by saying Happy New Year. I don't think we've done this.
True.
And in the spirit of Ghana's inauguration, let me start by saying Akwaba.
Yes, Akwaba. Thank you so much.
Sounds like
I think my mom has a...
It does sound like a kind of food, doesn't it?
My mom was born there, so...
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you have small Ghanaian ties?
Yeah, a bit.
You don't.
But...
Sorry. Yes.
I'm happy to be here, guys. It's great to be here. I mean, a lot is happening in Ghana. Well, I say it's a new dawn. Because it's been there before, just like you said, and he's back.
It's a second-hand dawn.
But I think it's a phase, another phase, let me use that word, for Ghana. John Mahama has been around the political space, for quite some time. In 2009, he was the vice president. Fast forward, he made it to becoming president, single term. Then, that's 2012, and then he lost to Akufo-Addo twice, and now he's back. And then a twist to it is that his vice happens to be the first female vice president.
And I think also the first female vice chancellor of university.
Right? And she's a full-fledged professor of literature. Interesting times for Ghana. But what are the key issues here? The key issues happen to be, number one, just like you've been asking, why did Ghanaians vote him back? What happened? Even though we know that when he was vice president, particularly president, there were also issues, of course.
Not just also issues. So, I mean, there were a lot of issues in the sense that I think out of 280 promises he made in his manifesto under the NDC or NCD, one of the NNDs, he fulfilled only 77, right? And then in his, it was when his administration was in power that they recorded a terrible, they recorded so much economic downturn that they had a term, is it doom law or doomsor, which was a way to say that things have gotten so bad. And because of that, people had hopes for Nana Akufo-Addo when he came. And that's why he lost to Nana Akufo. Although Nana Akufo-Addo, on the other hand, now when you think it couldn't get worse, it got worse than it was. So back to the question, why not just voting him back, but the excitement that he's back?
I think number one, it has to do with the fact that people don't appreciate leaders or leadership so much until they're out of office. And then maybe if there's a new administration, they compare and they say, oh, where we're coming from is better. Let's go back. And then number two, I don't know, maybe the level of political enlightenment and awareness, right? What do I mean? So people feel, hey, it's a low-hanging fruit. We know his resume. let's just take chances with him again. Yeah. Aside other personal issues, maybe tribe, religion, affiliation, the level of political enlightenment too plays a pivotal role. Another issue could just be, well, maybe lack of options.
Let me jump in there when you come to lack of options. I'm sorry. There were several options, several candidates, I think about 16 or
how many of them are properly known?
And now, here's the thing, and we see this happen in Nigeria as well, right? We say, oh, election has come, there are two candidates, and then people correct us. There are not two candidates, there are several candidates, right? But the two major, APC, PDP, using Nigeria as a case study. And now we had Labour Party, and we had the NNPP, which is spearheaded by Alhaji Rabiu Kwankwaso. The same thing you had in Ghana. You had two major parties, the NPP and the NDC, and you had other parties. You even had, there was even an independent candidate, I made to understand. And then there was a young man who was about in his early 40s or late 30s who was also there. Apparently, I think he had the least votes. Now, we complain all the time about how tired we are of the old politicians, right? And we want change. Change comes and knocks us in the head, and we still don't recognize change, because these are new politicians who have now arrived and now emerged, but yet we still go ahead and vote the old guns. So what exactly is the issue here? And this, I'm looking at it, from the broader perspective, not just Ghana, but I mean, we had the same issue here in Nigeria as well.
Even in the U.S. with Kamala Harris, I remember then that they were talking about, we need something fresh, we need change and everything. And from the way, I mean... I think
that of the U.S. is pretty different. I'm sorry.
Is it?
Okay, let me allow you to finish.
So the thing is, if you had seen how people talked so much about allowing, a black woman, allowing a new person, you would feel like it would reflect on paper. Or would I say on paper, they talked a lot about it, but when it came time to actually, yes, even people that were campaigning for her just were not, and we had said it from the beginning, they were not ready for a female, not to talk of black president. So I think that that mindset, people are not exactly willing to, would I say, gamble their options.
Yeah, I think
it's more like the devil you know is better than the angel you don't, right? They know how terrible the administrations that have come before are, but if they come up against a new set of persons, exactly. So it's like,
I think the only country that, sorry, before you come in there, Dapo, the country that defied this rule of the demon you know is better than the angel you don't was Senegal. That actually stood and voted a young president. For the first time, they decided, you know what, we are tired of all of this. And they went for this guy.
So seasons like that happen in every political cycle of a country that is democratic. At some point, the people are tired of the old, and they just want something fresh. We saw that happen with the PDP when Nigerians got tired of the People's Democratic Party at the presidential level, and they voted en masse and brought in Buhari then, running on the campaign slogan of anti-corruption and all. We are at it right now. It's been almost, how many years? 16 years. And Nigerians are, they're there. Yeah. I don't want to go into that.
We are where we are.
We are where we are. Right? So it happens. People get tired and they just want something fresh. They want something new. But the question is this. It still goes back to the level of political awareness. How many people even know political history so well? Unfortunately, what we have seen, which is peculiar to Africa, is that people tend to forget easily where they are coming from. I don't know if you get what I mean. So a leader comes up, presents himself, you vote him in, you don't like him, you vote him out, call him all sorts of names,
so
and then it will never happen again. God forbid, it's the worst thing, blah, blah, blah. Many years down the line, you vote, that person comes back and says, oh, I'm rebranded, and then you vote him, forgetting what you have experienced under such an individual. The same John that is talking against corruption had cases around corruption too that, really, really put a smear on his administration. So I think for me, level of political awareness too plays a key role. How many people really truly know the political trajectory or political history? How many people are willing to even do a bit of due diligence to dig up and ask real questions, you understand, on nation building, on governance, on even democracy? So I think for me, why we keep seeing leaders recycle themselves is, aside the political strategy of many of these leaders who keep coming back because they have the means, they have the name, they have the influence, they have the network, is people too not really knowing so much and just knowing just barely enough. So a leader comes, says a few things because you know where it's coming from, you feel, oh, he's the Messiah, and then we are back to where we are. In the case of Nigeria, the majority of the voting public are not even the enlightened ones like you and I who have degrees. Many of them are the market women, and it's based on what they know. So I think that change really has to start from there. Now, back to Ghana. I really hope that, I mean, this is one politician that you would want to say is pretty much experienced. He's been a vice president. He's been president. He's been the chair twice. He's been the chairman of ECOWAS before. So we are looking at a rounded fellow here who has experience across levels. So hopefully he's able to bring...
So I think that is the challenge. Because he has the experience doesn't mean that, and this is not me trying to, you know, downplay everything that he has achieved or experienced, but it doesn't mean that he achieved as much as he experienced. Right? He came into power in 2009, 2012. I don't think that there was a lot of tangible things that people saw him achieve. So this thing you said was was the point I was going to make, where people say things like, oh, the tides are different. Even in Nigeria, we make that comparison. Oh, I wish there was so person in power now because things are different now. The person will handle it better. But we're circling around the same problems. It's just different names. At the end of the day, things are more expensive. Things were expensive at that time. It's just more expensive now because of, you know, the season that we found ourselves in. So we have that problem of trying to compare, oh, this person was that before, even though like you said, we have this selective amnesia where we forget that they did not really achieve anything much, but we now tie it to their experience. Oh, after all, they've been there, they've done that. They didn't achieve much, but because they've been there and done that, we think that they are best suited for the position.
I mean, a typical example in Nigeria is the case of just immediate past President Buhari, who was a former president before Nigerians felt, oh, okay, given his past record, antecedent, he should be able to fight corruption. Under his administration, we've seen so many revelations that you ask, it looks like corruption embodiment, but personified. I think the takeaway in all of this is Africa needs to evolve to start building stronger institutions than persons. Institutions that, at the end of the day, they naturally sieve out incompetence. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like, stop incentivizing the position.
Do you get this over and over so if the institutions are pretty much strong enough to ensure that, look, if your original intention is to steal money,
there's no money there.
It's not for you. You just know. There are some jobs. It's just like someone applying for a job. There are some JDs you read, and you just know this is not mine. No hard feelings. So I think Africa needs to evolve to that level where, irrespective of who you are, where you're coming from, look, the institutions are so powerful such that you either fall in line or you just get out. No hard feelings.
I totally agree. Just before you go now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the only world leader, president, who spoke at that inauguration. In fact, he said, my good friend, and it was a small blunder, that was a joke. He said, I'd like to welcome my good friend, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, president of Ghana. That was a mistake from the president himself. Anyway, that got me laughing. But you know, being the only president who was given the chance to talk and was called the special guest of honor, are we looking at it from the part where, you know, the kind of relationship that Ghana has with Nigeria, or the personal relationship that John Dramani Mahama has with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or because of the fact that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is currently the ECOWAS chairman? Why do you think he was given such an honor?
So there are a lot of factors that you know, could have been responsible for this, but I think largely it's based on personal relations. I mean, they've been long-standing friends. Even, you know, before our current president, as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, became president, they've been good buddies. And guess what? They also share some sort of political history. John, former ECOWAS chairman, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the current ECOWAS chairman. And then aside that, John Mahama spent a bulk of his life, a good amount of years, growing in Nigeria, in Kwara State. So it feels, I mean, there's a special connection. And I mean, Ghana is just down, I mean, just a few miles away from here.
But
I think for me, they're really, it doesn't really signal much than, two brothers being cordial here.
So do you think that this personal relationship is going to trickle down to the countries at large? Because Nigeria and Ghana, well, it's not been as toxic as Nigeria and South Africa, but we've had, some healthy competition here and there. There was a time where Nigerians were chasing Ghana must go, and then, Ghana's economy became better. And we have a lot of things, we have more things in common than we think.
See, aside music, where we, of course, come for ourselves, the Shatta Wale and Pastors, the Burna Boy team and all of that, I think that we are more intertwined.
And the jollof.
And the jollof.
By the way, I had that jollof. Look, Nigeria's smoky jollof is it. I'm sorry, we can bury that conversation.
It looks like you want to start a storm, right?
They're now even trying to convince me that.
No. I mean, if you tell me about their fufu and light soup, that's good, right? And then there was this food they called konkonte face the wall.
You say what?
What was that?
Konkonte face the wall.
Did you face the wall when you went?
I did.
How do you eat it? Do you eat it facing the wall?
So I had to ask why they call it that, and somebody told me that it's like when you drink gari and say gari is poor man food, right? That konkonte is, I think it's that kind of amala or something, if I'm not mistaken, and that when people would eat the food, it was almost like food that it was cheap food that poor people could afford. So when you're eating it, you don't want people to see you eating it, so you face the wall and you eat konkonte. So they call it konkonte face the wall.
But I think in the case of Nigeria, all those poor man food, no, they get beans right now in Starbucks.
Honestly.
You buy beans now, you're a big boy. But just back to your question. I think that there's a lot we stand to benefit from one another, being mutually connected. Nigeria and Ghana, we go way back. Yes, there have been rough times, but this is a new dawn in Ghana's political history. We know that this president has strong connections with Nigeria, aside his political, journey. So we are seeing a situation whereby maybe there will be stronger, bilateral relations, particularly around the economy. We know a lot of Nigerian businesses that have, strong footing in Ghana, and likewise too. So I'm seeing in the coming months better exchange, particularly in the area of economy and security.
So besides that, now, what do you think this says for the people of Ghana? And here's where I'm coming from. Just like Blessings clearly stated, it's not as if when I like the man personally, right? But this is away from my own personal
bias.
Exactly. Now, we've seen him before. He's come in there. Things were tough. Ghanaians complained, and then he was voted out because they had a next best option. And now the next best option also didn't do so well. Exactly. And then they voted that one out and brought him back. Are we really going to expect? It's almost as if when things are bad in the economy, the next person who comes, just comes to campaign with the problems that are currently being experienced.
And if we're taking a chance on someone we know didn't really do well, why not take a chance on a new person altogether?
My point exactly. So what does this hold for Ghanaians now?
So I think in the case of Ghanaians, Akufo-Addo, maybe it was just that one person they felt they could take a chance on, and maybe he didn't deliver. They gave him 2 terms, and I mean, unfortunately, the economy is where it is. A lot of Ghanaians are complaining. Yeah. We know that he was doing his tenure. I mean, there was the corona pandemic, and Ghana really had to fight to come out of many of these economic challenges. I saw where, on the floor of the House, someone described his administration as the worst in the history of the country. That's Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
Right? But again, time will tell. The world is watching, Nigeria is watching, Ghanaians are watching. What will this second term of John Mahama be like? Will he be able to undo or correct some of those challenges he pointed as regards this current administration? See, ultimately the power still lies with the people, and it goes back to what I said earlier, the level of political awareness and enlightenment. People need to ask critical questions. People need to study the history of their nations. People need to look into they need to do a bit of background check of their political leaders and ask those questions. It's not a matter of I will give you water, I will give you light, I will give you good roads. How? What would you do? How do we move from point A to point B? People usually shy away from asking, especially when they feel some sort of emotional or sentimental attachment to a leader, and then they feel it's the Alpha and the Omega, the Messiah, and then they get betrayed. So I think we'll get there, but we need to be intentional.
So speaking of the people of Ghana asking critical questions, I know that that is important, but then again, it doesn't take the layman a lot of education to see what's happening and what is not being done. And so when we talk about good water, good roads, to be honest, not everybody is going to be literate when it comes to the politics, the constitution and everything, but the old people of Ghana, the aged people, the young people know what's working and what's not working. So that leads me to the question of what exactly do you think the people of Ghana want at this time that Akufo-Addo could not give them?
I think they want a stable economy. I think they want functional education and healthcare system. I mean, these are key issues. And unfortunately, that seems also to be universal, across many countries, on the continent. A stable economy. I mean, there's a standard of living crisis across many nations, Nigeria inclusive, where people cannot afford even to feed themselves. We saw what happened during the festive season, where in some states, not one state, not two, at least 3 states, there was stampede. People lost their lives doing a giveaway, and it was just food. So if is able to do magic with the economy, with education, with healthcare, with infrastructure, then I think Ghanaians will say, you know what, it was a good thing we brought you back.
Now, I think to quickly drop this here while we wrap up this particular conversation, there were the taxes that the government of Nana Akufo-Addo brought in, particularly the e-levy tax, where I think 1.5 or 1.7% was added onto different electronic transfers. You are transferring money, you're receiving money, you're trying to transfer a lot of they called it the e-levy taxes. That was a huge one. And then the youth, I know that John Mahama used this to campaign, particularly with the youth. He was speaking pidgin in that particular video I saw. Ghana pidgin is different from Nigerian, by the way. Anyway, but
well, I think you can understand it.
Oh, yes, you can. And he was, so there's this tax also that was placed on sports betting. Now, if you hit sports betting, you hit the youths in a place where you do not want to. They put a 10% tax on everything you win on betting, gambling, sports betting generally. Now, the rule, when I read it, it was that if you win, that tax is taken out of your earnings, your winnings. However, if you lose or you break even, you get your money back, the tax is not going to be taken away. Such that even the betting companies were threatened with shutdowns and lockdowns if they did not put that in place. Of course, that didn't go well with the youth, particularly the young people in Ghana, and John Mahama, in one of his campaign speeches, said he would remove that. That statement alone, I think, won him the hearts of majority of the youths who engage in this activity. It's and so many other things. It's not
easy to talk. It's easy to talk.
I'll do this.
It's easy to talk.
I'll remove these things that were there.
It's easy to talk until you see
you eventually get there. Yeah.
You see the financials of the country, and then you understand maybe why some decisions were taken. This is where I'm going. If you want to increase taxes on businesses, on individuals, a big question to you is, what are you doing to ensure ease of doing business? What are you doing to improve people's lives, such that when they even pay these taxes, they don't feel it?
Yeah.
You cannot tell someone that is suffering that you want to further increase his penury or his misery by making life miserable through taxes, right?
And you're not doing anything.
And you're not doing anything to ensure that struggling businesses get on their feet. Instead, what they're seeing is multiple taxation, across board. So the big question is, government, yes, we know that government has an obligation, revenue drive and all of that, but what are you doing to ensure that I am able to generate enough revenue such that when you come to collect what belongs to Caesar, I give it to you in one blink. And I don't feel it.
I think that's a good way for us, a good place for us to drop the conversation. Yeah, thank you so much, Dakwa, as always. We would like to take a quick break, but we're still sticking with Ghana. When we come back, we're looking at the other side of the inauguration. What's that about? Ghana is having the very first ever female vice president. Do stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you once again for staying with us. It's still Report Desk Africa, and we have been talking about the politics in Ghana, especially post-election, where we saw Mahama emerge as winner, taking over from Akufo-Addo. Now, we're glad that you're still here because our second segment is also about Ghana, but this time all about breaking barriers and making history. For the first time in Ghana's political history, a woman has been appointed as vice president. And you see how I'm all smiles? Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang's appointment is a significant milestone, not just for Ghana, but for the entire continent, because it signifies something special when it comes to gender equality. Now, to dive deeper, we are asking how much of this is a real step towards change? Will Opoku-Agyemang's role truly pave the way for more women to take on influential positions in politics, or is this an isolated case and just by a stroke of luck? But before diving into that, here's a report compiled by News Central's correspondent, Afia Hagen. Take a look.
The selection of Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang as Ghana's pioneering female vice president adds the nation to the expanding list of African countries promoting gender balance in governance. The literature professor stepped into this position following the successful re-election of President John Dramani Mahama, representing the National Democratic Congress in the 7th of December 2024 elections. Opoku-Agyemang's career showcases her pioneering spirit. She made history as the University of Cape Coast's first female vice-chancellor in 2008, followed by her role as Ghana's education minister during Mahama's tenure from 2013 to 2017. She broke new ground again in 2020 as the first woman vice presidential nominee from a major Ghanaian party, although that campaign proved unsuccessful. But this time around, Opoku-Agyemang made history.
Historic, huge win, not just for women, but for everyone. Diverse leadership benefits everyone. So I'm just really excited to see, particularly with the economic difficulties that Ghana's been going through, some new thinking coming in, some new ideas, hopefully, as well. So, and we all know that when it comes to women in leadership, societies thrive, both economically, politically, and socially. So I'm really excited to see what happens next.
This milestone marks crucial progress for Ghana, where women make up 51% of the population, yet occupying merely 14.5% of parliamentary positions, as reported by the World Bank. This statistic remains considerably lower than the worldwide average of 26.9%. Ghana's progress mirrors a wider African trend in female leadership. Rwanda stands as a global leader, with 61.3% women in its parliament. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan and Namibia's Ntumbu Nandi-Ndaitwah, who made history as her nation's first female president, exemplify women's growing influence in African governance. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Of course, and who best to sit with us for this particular segment other than the same person who put this report together, our very own international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Chale, thank you for joining us. Can you hear us, Afia? We can't seem to hear you clearly.
I can hear you. Can you hear me, guys?
Okay, I can hear you fantastically well. I need you to tell me, and I know that we don't have so much time with you, I need you to tell me why I feel, I have goose pimples every time this story comes up. Now, from your perspective, how important do you think Opoku-Agyemang's appointment is, not just for the women of Ghana, but, you know, for women across Africa? Why is it so exciting to hear? Even though I'm not a woman, I have goosebumps all over.
It's so exciting. And you know, Blessing said it in the intro, you know, it's so exciting for her and I, for you, for everyone, because it's a new dawn in Ghana. We've never really had a woman in such a high place in office. And let's remember, John Mahama can only do one term because he served a term already. And so if the NDC decide that, you know, they're going to have a flag bearer for the next election, it could be Opoku-Agyemang, and that could pave the way for Ghana's first female president, and that is a huge step forward, especially in Ghana, where we're 51% of the population, but under 15% in parliament. This is going to encourage participation at all levels of women in office, whether that's at local government, whether that's at more national scale, and it's also going to be about putting forward the needs of women in governance and in parliament, eradicating period poverty, making sure that girls stay in school, fighting female cancers like ovarian cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. Opoku-Agyemang can be instrumental in making sure these conversations are front and center of the Ghanaian government and policy going forward, and that's really exciting.
Okay, so I want to take a counterintuitive stance on this. Now, I know that having a female vice president is a big milestone, and we'll still have the conversation about gender inclusivity, gender balance and all, but my major fear is the pressure. And what I mean is several times we've seen women come into power and all eyeballs are on them. When there is a mistake from a woman, it's like 1,000 times more amplified than a mistake from a man. And, you know, they use that as precedents to talk about all the other women coming, you know, that's how this person made that mistake, that person made that mistake, and you know it puts a lot of pressure on the women themselves. And I feel like there are about 3 categories of women: the ones who are still primitive in their thoughts, who do not believe that they have a place in those kind of positions, the ones who actually want to take that bold step but are scared of this kind of pressure, this kind of criticism, and the ones who genuinely do not care. So how do you think that this would, you know, highlight the, you know, how she would deal with the pressure? How do you think that that's one conversation that we definitely have to have? What are the ways that we can balance this? Maybe pressure her less, maybe focus on the fact that she's actually someone who deserves a position and not just a woman in position.
Listen, the pressure is going to be incredible, and she is going to be under increased scrutiny because she is a woman. She will she'll be expected to be twice as good as John Mahama and be under twice as much scrutiny. There'll be column inches written about what she wears and her hair and all the rest of it. And yes, you're absolutely right in saying, Blessings, that the glass cliff is a problem, that often women in positions of power, sometimes they are stuck there in place of a man when they know that something is going to fail. They stick a woman in charge, and then when it fails, they say it failed because she was a woman. I hope that this isn't happening in this case. And yes, she is going to be absolutely scrutinized twice as much, 10 times as much as John Mahama. Now, it's more than clear that Jane Naana Opoku-Agyemang, Professor, if I want to give her proper title, Vice President, is more than qualified for this position. Let's look at her CV, you know, former education minister, professor of literature, you know, all these incredible things that she has done proves and shows us that she's more than capable of taking up this office and the office of president as well. And I hope that everybody keeps that in their minds when they're talking about her, about the work that she is doing. I hope that while she's in the office of vice president, as we know, in any country, often the vice presidential office can be a bit of a token office, but I hope that she uses this opportunity to take the reins, to show what women can do when they are in such an important leadership position and so close to the presidency. And I actually also hope that she uses it to set herself up for a viable, credible and successful presidential bid in 4 years' time.
If I didn't know you better, Afia, that said you were campaigning for a certain role because you just sounded like a politician yourself. But I mean, I wouldn't put anything past you. Thank you so much, Afia, for joining us on this. And truly, we put our minds together. I do hope that this opens a new door, a new portal for women in politics, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, as a matter of fact. Thank you once again for joining us, as always.
Thank you.
So honestly, Blessings, I would like to jump in here, to be honest, right? Like the question you asked, Afia, deeply, and that's the truth. Women will always get the shorter end of the stick, unfortunately, right? We're seeing different movements, different advocacies trying to break that. What would I call it now? Trying to break that stereotype.
Yeah.
However, really, there has to be something different that she would bring in. Now, the challenge here, or one of the challenges here, like Afia also did say, the role of a vice president, more often than not, is almost like a token role. It's almost like a gift. The vice president is not the one that does the heavy lifting, right? That makes the major decisions. So, again, there's still that school of thought that will feel like, she's just been handed that role ceremoniously to just be the first female vice president, without even considering, like she said, her very impressive resume,
yes.
Everything she's done and achieved.
Yes, unfortunately, like you said, there are people who would discredit, the fact that she actually deserves to be in that position. And I think that the most dangerous kind of people are the ones who will not discredit, but are looking forward to what she will do. Like you said, the women get the shorter end of the stick. Usually, the eyeballs would not exactly be on the vice president for a start. It's going to be, what's the president doing? What's the move from the president? And maybe when the president is out of the country, they're like, okay, what's the vice president doing? But seeing as she's a woman, there will always be questions about what is she doing? What impact is she making? What reform is she championing? Those kind of questions. And those are the things that I'm sure that she would know to brace herself for, because those questions would always come, unfortunately.
Definitely, they'll always come. And, it's even tougher in African climes, because we know that culture and tradition, sadly, doesn't exactly favor women in this part of the globe. It would have been, I was speaking to someone in Ghana then, we didn't even know that, that she and her superior were going to win the elections as at then. And someone was saying to me, imagine if, the American elections as well was won by a woman. Right? Would that have put in America in the place where it is concerning global democracy? Do you think that could have changed the way the entire world looked at female presidents, as a matter of fact? It
goes beyond just winning the election. I don't think, because at the end of the day, like I said, and I keep emphasizing, that pressure would always be there, right? It will dawn on people, and honestly, this is me being 100%, it will dawn on people that they don't think that they're ready to take orders from women, unfortunately. We're in the 21st century, but no matter how many people vote her in, there'll still be people who will feel like, nah, she doesn't deserve to be there. So it goes beyond just winning the election. If you give it 1 year, 2 years, you realize that people are still not ready for that conversation, and so it would not change nada.
That's a table you just shook right now. Just before we go into focus, I remember that I would look for that clip again where Samia Suluhu, the president of Tanzania, I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah, spoke to someone, I think it was a gentleman, who didn't seem to take orders very easily from her. She said, "I'm your president." You would. It was like a movie, and it put a kind of worldwide smile around my face. That it's something I think I would like to see more often. I'm a huge advocate for the woman folk, and I do hope that women and ladies will take up more positions, particularly in politics. We'll take our very last break, and when we come back, we'll be jumping into the forecast. For those who don't know, forecast is, where we get to look into what the stories that we'll be expecting in the coming week. Do stay with us. And for the last part of the show, our forecast segment, we first go to Mozambique, where Mozambique's main opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane, has returned from exile, sparking a dramatic scene in the country. Now, since protests erupted following the October 9th election, reports indicate that the country remains volatile.
All right, now we're coming back to Nigeria, where the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has announced that it has seized the registration of sachet alcohol products as of February 2024. In addition, NAFDAC has shifted its regulatory focus towards herbal medicines. Now, the agency is working in collaboration with the Nigerian National Medicine Development Agency, NNMDA, to develop a Nigerian herbal pharmacopoeia and a traditional medicine formula.
And with that, we have come to the end of the show. That certainly is all for Report Desk Africa today and for this week, well, at least for the live show. Now, Ghana is at the crossroad, as we just have explained, and so is Africa. Will these developments lead to lasting changes or more of the same?
Well, that said, this is a good place to draw the curtain. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still RDA. Join us in our subsequent episodes as we still tackle the issues across the African continent from a reporter's perspective. My name is Blessings Mosugu.
And my name is Bernard Akede. See you again next time.